The first person to notice the problem was not a surgeon. It was the man polishing the floor outside operating room 6. His name badge said, Gabriel Rowan, Environmental Services. Most people called him Gabe. He was 67 years old, tall, lean, with silver gray hair, a short gray beard, and the quiet posture of someone who had spent a lifetime learning how not to waste movement.
Watch out for that
spill. He worked
spill.
nights at St. Arden Medical Center, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. He emptied waste bins, changed isolation room liners, cleaned corridors, restocked disinfectant stations, mopped around nurses who barely noticed him. He preferred it that way. At 2:14 on a Tuesday morning, Gabe stopped beside the double doors leading into the surgical core.
We need to check the isolation
floor
room.
was dry.
I will monitor the
hallway
ventilation.
was empty, but something was wrong.
Hello?
A stainless steel
Is anyone
instrument
there?
cart was parked outside the sterile processing
I
transfer
need some help
door.
in here!
Its blue cover had been pulled halfway back. That alone was not catastrophic, but the cart was sitting directly beneath an air vent that had been marked for maintenance 3 weeks earlier. Gabe knew because he had seen the work order taped inside the service corridor. Airflow balance failed. Recheck required. The label had disappeared 2 days later. The repair had not happened. Gabe looked at the cart, then at the vent, then toward the sterile processing window. A technician named Jasmine Cole was inside. She was 26 and working alone. Gabe knocked lightly on the glass. Jasmine looked up. He pointed toward the cart. She opened the door. What? That cart cleared? She frowned. Why? The cover is open. I know. Where is it going? Or 6. What case? Liver transplant. Gabe looked at the clock. What time? 4:30. His eyes went back to the vent. Move it. Jasmine stared at him. What? Move the cart away from this corridor. She laughed once. You're serious? Yes. Gabe, I have 3 carts and no space. That vent failed balance. Her face changed slightly. What? 3 weeks ago. How do you know? I saw the work order. They would have shut the corridor. Maybe. Jasmine looked at the vent, then back at him. Your environmental services. Yes. And you're telling sterile processing where to stage instruments? I'm telling you the vent is still on the maintenance list. That's not the same thing. No. Gabe nodded. It's enough to move the cart. Jasmine hesitated, then moved it, not because she believed him completely, because he had said it without drama. At 4:52 that morning, the transplant was delayed, not because of the vent. A separate sterility indicator on one tray showed an incomplete cycle. The tray was pulled, then another. By 6 o'clock, sterile processing had quarantined 14 instrument sets. By 7, the transplant team was furious. By 8, Hospital Director Vivian Cross wanted to know why a janitor's name was in the incident report. Vivian Cross was 51. She had an MD she had stopped using clinically 12 years earlier, an MBA from Wharton, and a resume filled with hospital turnarounds. She wore dark tailored suits, perfect hair, minimal jewelry, no wasted words. The board loved her. Under Vivian, St. Arden had increased surgical volume by 18%, operating margins improved, patient satisfaction scores rose. The hospital opened a new cardiac tower. A magazine ranked St. Arden among the region's 10 most efficient medical centers. Vivian liked the word efficient. She used it the way some people used the word moral. If something was efficient, it was good. If something slowed the system, it was a problem. And Gabriel Rowan had begun slowing the system. Not intentionally, but repeatedly. He reported hand sanitizer stations that stayed empty too long. He questioned why an isolation cart was parked outside a negative pressure room. He noticed that overnight cleaning coverage had dropped from 14 workers to 9. He asked why high-touch cleaning logs were being signed before rooms were actually released. He sent 3 emails about the failed airflow check. He did not send them to Vivian. He used normal channels: facilities, infection prevention, environmental services supervision. Nothing dramatic. That was what made him irritating. People could dismiss a loud man as emotional. Gabe was never loud. He was simply difficult to make disappear. At 9:30, Vivian called Environmental Services Director Mark Hensley. Who is Rowan? Mark looked at the incident report. Night janitor. How long? About 14 months. Background? Mark shrugged. Retired. Clean record. Good performance. Medical background? Not that I know. Vivian tapped the report. Why is he directing sterile processing? He says he didn't. He told a technician to move a cart. He told her about the vent. He should have called facilities. He did. Vivian looked up. What? 3 times. Mark opened an email chain. Vivian read it. The first email was 11 days earlier. Airflow balance warning still unresolved outside sterile transfer corridor. Please verify before continued staging use. The second was 4 days later. Following up, maintenance tag removed but no completed work order appears in system. The third was the night before. Vent still active. Instrument carts continue to stage below it. Please advise. Vivian stared at the screen. Who received these? Facilities coordinator. Infection prevention inbox. Any response? One automated. That's it? Yes. Vivian leaned back. The correct reaction would have been concern. For 3 seconds she felt it. Then she saw the bigger problem. If the vent issue became connected to the sterile processing failure, surgery leadership would demand a larger review. A larger review meant delays. Delays meant canceled cases. Canceled cases meant revenue loss. And St. Arden was 6 weeks away from finalizing a major affiliation agreement with North Star Surgical Partners. Vivian had spent 18 months building it. Nothing could make the hospital look unstable now. Fix the vent. Mark nodded. And tell Rowan concerns go through supervision. They did. Vivian looked at him. Then tell him again. That afternoon, the liver transplant was completed with replacement instruments. The patient did well. No immediate harm occurred. That should have ended the story. Instead, Gabe found something else. 3 nights later, he was cleaning the surgical staff lounge when 2 residents entered. They did not notice him. One dropped into a chair. Another post-op infection. The other opened the refrigerator. Not officially. What does that mean? It means they reclassified it. As what? Present on admission. That patient was admitted for an elective colectomy. I know. Gabe kept wiping the counter. The first resident lowered his voice. Patel is losing her mind. Dr. Maya Patel. 41. Transplant and hepatobiliary surgeon. Brilliant. Demanding. Not easily impressed. Gabe had watched her operate once. Not directly. Through a teaching monitor during a late-night equipment cleanup. Her movements were clean. Economical. No wasted motion. He recognized the discipline. The residents left. Gabe finished the lounge. Then went downstairs to the employee library. St. Arden still kept internal quality reports accessible to staff with hospital credentials. Most janitors never used them. Gabe did. He searched infection dashboards. Surgical site infections had fallen sharply over the previous year, almost too sharply. Yet overnight antibiotic escalation requests had increased. So had unexpected readmissions after major abdominal surgery. The numbers did not prove anything, but they did not fit comfortably together. Gabe wrote them down. The next night, he asked Maya Patel a question. She was standing outside the OR changing area with coffee in one hand and a phone in the other. Dr. Patel. She looked up. Yes? Do you know why post-op infection classifications changed last quarter? She stared at him. What? Some are being marked present on admission. Her expression became guarded. Why are you asking? Because I heard 2 residents discussing it. That conversation wasn't for you. No. He nodded. But the question is still good. Maya looked at his name badge. Environmental services? Yes. You understand patient quality classifications? Yes. How? Gabe paused. Long story. She almost walked away. Then he said, your readmission rate is rising while your reported surgical infections are falling. She stopped. Slowly. What did you say? Readmissions after major abdominal surgery. They're up. Where did you get that? Internal quality dashboard. Why are you reading the quality dashboard? It's available to staff. Maya stared at him. There was something about the answer that bothered her. Not because it was wrong, because it was precise. You work nights? Yes. What did you do before this? Medicine. Her eyes narrowed. What kind? Gabe looked at the floor buffer beside him. Another long story. Then he walked away. Maya watched him go. The following Monday, St. Arden hosted the North Star Surgical Partnership dinner. It was not exactly a gala. It was more dangerous than a gala. Surgeons attended, board members, department chairs, outside investors, academic partners, 3 visiting surgeons from major medical centers. The event was held in the glass atrium beneath the new cardiac tower. Vivian Cross gave the opening remarks. She spoke about precision, innovation, outcomes, St. Arden's record low infection rates. Maya Patel sat at a table near the front. She did not applaud that line. Across the room, Gabe pushed a cleaning cart along the perimeter. He was scheduled because environmental services had been told the atrium needed continuous upkeep during the event. Vivian saw him. She also saw Maya looking at him. That irritated her. During dinner, a visiting surgeon named Dr. Leonard Weiss asked about St. Arden's infection prevention program. Vivian smiled. Our surgical site infection rate is down 32% year over year. Leonard nodded. Impressive. Maya looked at her plate. Then Leonard asked, "What changed?" Vivian answered immediately. Standardization, better perioperative coordination, stronger environmental protocols. Gabe stopped behind a column. Not intentionally. He was changing a trash liner. Leonard continued. "Did you alter case definitions?" The question was technical, ordinary. Vivian's smile held. "We aligned with updated internal review standards." Maya looked up. Leonard noticed. "What does that mean?" Before Vivian could answer, Maya spoke. "It means some cases were reclassified after quality review." Vivian turned toward her. "Maya." Leonard looked between them. "How many?" "I don't know," Vivian said. "This is not the setting for granular quality methodology." Maya's voice stayed calm. "Then what setting is?" The table went quiet. Vivian's eyes moved past Maya and landed on Gabe. He was standing 20 feet away with a black trash bag in one hand, watching. Vivian had the irrational feeling that he had caused this. Not directly, but somehow. The next morning, she called him to her office. Gabe arrived at 9:12 after finishing his shift. He stood in front of her desk wearing his dark gray work uniform. Vivian did not offer him a chair. "I understand you've been discussing infection data with surgeons." "One surgeon?" "Dr. Patel." "Yes." "Why?" She asked what I meant. Vivian's face hardened. "You raised the issue." "Yes." "You are a janitor." "Yes." "Do you understand how inappropriate this is?" Gabe looked at her. "Inappropriate to ask?" "Inappropriate to interfere in clinical quality management." "I didn't interfere." "You are creating confusion among staff." "Then clarify it." Vivian stared at him. Gabe's expression remained neutral. "You also accessed internal quality dashboards. They're available to employees. They are not intended for environmental services staff to conduct amateur analysis." "No." He nodded. "They're intended to show quality." Vivian stood. "This hospital does not function if every employee decides expertise is optional." Gabe's eyes changed slightly. "I agree." "Do you?" "Yes, because you have repeatedly behaved as if your opinion carries clinical weight." "No." Vivian stepped around the desk. "You told sterile processing what to do." "I told them the vent had failed inspection." "You challenged infection classifications." "I asked about them." "You spoke to a surgeon about quality data." She asked. Vivian stopped in front of him. "Mr. Rowan, I'm going to make this simple." Gabe waited. "Your job is environmental services." "Yes." "Floors, waste, room turnover." "Yes." "Not surgery." "No." "Not infection control." "No." "Oh." "Not hospital governance." "No." "Then stay in your lane." Gabe held her gaze. "I did." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "What?" "I reported the vent through facilities." Silence. "I reported empty sanitizer stations through environmental services." Silence. "I reported premature cleaning sign-offs to my supervisor." Vivian said nothing. Gabe continued. "The problem isn't that I left my lane." His voice stayed calm. "The problem is nobody answered from theirs." For the first time, Vivian lost control of her expression. "Get out." Gabe nodded. He turned. Then she said, "Actually, wait." He stopped. Vivian walked back behind her desk. "I'm ending your employment effective today." Gabe looked at her. "For what reason?" "Insubordination, repeated interference with clinical operations, failure to follow supervisory boundaries." Gabe was quiet. Vivian expected anger. He gave her something worse, disappointment. "Put that in writing." Her jaw tightened. "You'll receive documentation from HR. Include the emails." "What?" "The maintenance emails. This meeting is over. Include the quality dashboard access too." "Why?" "Because it's part of your reason." Vivian stared. "You don't get to dictate the termination record." "No." Gabe nodded. "But you should make it accurate." 2 hours later, he walked out of St. Arden carrying a cardboard box. Inside were work gloves, a thermos, 2 paperback books, a small framed photograph of a woman laughing beside a lake, and a surgical textbook nobody had ever noticed in his locker. Maya Patel saw him near the employee exit. Gabe? He stopped. What happened? I was fired. Her face changed. For talking to me? Among other things. That's insane. No. He adjusted the box. It's administrative. Who are you? The question came out harder than she intended. Gabe looked at her. You keep asking. Because you keep answering like a doctor. He was quiet. Maya continued. You knew the airflow issue mattered. Yes. You understood infection classification. Yes. You read surgical quality data like you've done it before. Yes. What did you do? Gabe looked through the glass doors at the hospital, then back at her. I was a surgeon. Maya laughed once. Not because it was funny, because the answer was too small. What kind? Transplant. Where? Several places. Name one. Easton University. Maya froze. Easton University. One of the most influential transplant programs in the country. She stared at him. What years? Long time ago. Name. Gabriel Rowan. I know your name. No. He looked at her. You know Gabe Rowan. Something moved across her face. Then she understood. Gabriel A. Rowan. He did not answer. Her mouth opened. Dr. Gabriel Rowan, former chief of transplant surgery at Easton University, author of the Rowan Preservation Protocol, lead investigator on one of the early multi-center studies that changed cold storage timing for donor livers, teacher of surgeons whose names filled textbooks. Maya had cited him in her fellowship thesis. She looked at the man holding a janitor's cardboard box. No. Gabe gave a tired half-smile. That's usually the reaction. You're Dr. Rowan. Retired. You're Dr. Gabriel Rowan. Still retired. Why are you working nights cleaning floors? Gabe looked at the photograph in the box. The woman beside the lake. My wife was a scrub nurse. Maya said nothing. She died 3 years ago. I'm sorry. She liked hospitals at night. Maya looked confused. Gabe continued. She said daytime medicine was performance. Nighttime medicine was truth. A faint smile touched his face. People are tired. Titles matter less. You see who actually keeps the place alive. Maya looked at his uniform. So you became a janitor? I needed work. You did not need money. No. You needed this? Gabe nodded. For a while. The employee doors opened behind them. 3 surgeons stepped outside. Leonard Weiss was among them. He saw Gabe, stopped, then stared. Professor Rowan? Maya closed her eyes. There it was. Leonard walked closer. Gabriel? Gabe sighed. Hello, Leonard. Leonard Weiss had trained at Easton 25 years earlier. He had been a second-year fellow when Gabe was chief. He looked at the cardboard box, then at the uniform, then back at Gabe. What are you doing here? Leaving. Why? I was fired. Leonard stared at Maya. She said, Hospital director. Leonard's expression changed. For what? Gabe answered. Bad lane discipline. Maya almost laughed. Leonard did not. Within 20 minutes, 6 surgeons knew. Within 40, 12. By noon, the chair of surgery knew. By 1:15, the chief medical officer was standing in Vivian Cross's office asking a question she did not enjoy. Did you fire Gabriel Rowan? Vivian looked up from her laptop. I fired an environmental services employee named Gabriel Rowan. The chief medical officer, Dr. Stephen Kell, stared at her. They're the same person. Vivian's face went still. What are you talking about? Stephen placed his phone on her desk. An old photograph filled the screen. Gabriel Rowan in surgical scrubs beside a transplant team. Younger, dark hair, no beard, but unmistakable. Vivian looked at it, then at Stephen. He never disclosed this. He didn't have to. He was working as environmental services. Yes. Then his surgical resume is irrelevant. Stephen stared at her. Maybe. Vivian heard the danger in the word. He continued. But his concerns aren't. By 3 o'clock, Maya Patel had sent a formal request to the Medical Executive Committee. She asked for an independent review of airflow maintenance in the surgical core, sterile processing failures, overnight environmental staffing, surgical infection reclassification, and the circumstances surrounding Gabe Rowan's termination. Leonard Weiss added his name. Then 3 department chiefs. Then 11 attending surgeons. Vivian called the move emotional. The board called it unavoidable. The review began the next morning. Gabe did not participate at first. He refused. I'm no longer an employee. Maya called him. You started this. No. You did. The failed indicator started it. You know what I mean. Gabe was quiet. Maya continued. We need you. No. Why? Because if I walk back in now, everyone will make this about who I used to be. It already is. That's the problem. Maya waited. Gabe looked out his kitchen window. Make it about the data. She understood, so they did. The infection control review lasted 7 weeks. The first findings were operational. Overnight environmental staffing had been cut 35% over 18 months. Room turnover targets had been shortened. High-touch cleaning audits were increasingly based on self-reported completion rather than direct observation. Facilities had delayed 3 airflow balance repairs in surgical areas. Sterile processing staffing had been reduced on nights despite growing case volume. None of those decisions alone proved negligence. Together, they created pressure. Then came the quality classifications. The hospital had not falsified every infection. That would have been easier. Instead, reviewers found an internal practice of challenging borderline surgical site infection classifications aggressively when cases could plausibly be attributed to pre-existing conditions. Clinicians were encouraged to use the narrowest defensible definition. Again, not automatically illegal, not automatically fraudulent, but emails showed why. Hospital rankings, affiliation negotiations, executive performance targets. One message from Vivian to quality leadership read, "We cannot allow subjective classification drift to erase 18 months of operational improvement before North Star review." Another said, "If a case can reasonably be coded outside surgical attribution, it should not be surrendered unnecessarily." The words were careful, the effect was not. Reviewers reclassified 23 cases. St. Arden's celebrated 32% infection reduction became 9%. Still an improvement, just not the miracle Vivian had advertised. Then the financial review found a conflict. The company contracted to provide overnight facilities maintenance was Arkwell Technical Services. Arkwell had received 2 contract extensions without competitive rebidding. One of its board advisors was Vivian Cross's former business partner. The relationship had been disclosed once during the original contract. It had not been renewed on later conflict forms. That alone did not prove favoritism. But the board had enough. Vivian was placed on administrative leave. She called Gabe personally. He almost did not answer. "Gabriel." "Vivian." There was a pause. "You could have told me." "Told you what?" "Who you were." "Would it have changed the vent?" Silence. "You let me fire you." "No." His voice was calm. "You fired me. You knew how this would look if people found out. I asked you to put the reason in writing." Vivian said nothing. Gabe continued. "You weren't supposed to care who I was. That's easy to say when you were once one of the most powerful surgeons in the country." "No." He looked at Anna's photograph on the kitchen shelf. "That's exactly when it matters." Vivian's voice softened. "I built that hospital." Gabe answered quietly. "No." That stopped her. "You ran it." Silence. "The nurses built it, the technicians, the cleaners, the residents, the patients who trusted it." He paused. "You ran it." Vivian hung up. 3 weeks later, the board terminated her for cause. The reasons were not dramatic: failure of disclosure, inadequate oversight, improper interference with quality review, misleading performance representation, retaliatory termination inconsistent with reporting policy. Her incentive compensation was reviewed under the hospital's clawback rules. North Star paused the affiliation, then restarted negotiations after St. Arden published the review and adopted corrective measures. The hospital did not collapse. It improved. Sterile processing added night staff. Environmental services restored 5 positions. Airflow maintenance moved to a higher priority schedule. Quality classification disputes required independent physician review. And every employee, regardless of department, received a protected pathway for safety concerns. The board offered Gabe reinstatement, not as a janitor, as senior patient safety advisor. He refused. Then they offered him a part-time role with the surgical quality committee. He refused that too. Maya drove to his house. "You are being ridiculous." Gabe opened the door. "I've been called worse. You spent 2 months forcing people to listen. I spent 14 months cleaning floors." "Exactly." She stepped inside. "You can help." "I did." "You can keep helping." He looked at her. "As what?" "Anything you want." "That's the wrong answer." Maya frowned. Gabe continued. "Give me the same badge." "What?" Environmental services. You want your janitor job back? Night shift. She stared at him. You are one of the most respected transplant surgeons alive. Retired. You wrote the Rowan Protocol. Old paper. I cited you 37 times in fellowship. That sounds excessive. She laughed despite herself, then stopped. Why? Gabe looked at the photograph of Anna beside the lake. Because she was right. About what? Nighttime medicine. Maya waited. He smiled faintly. You see who the hospital really is. The board hated the idea. Legal hated it more. Eventually they compromised. Gabe returned 3 nights a week as an environmental services quality liaison. Half janitor, half safety observer. He still cleaned. He still pushed the cart. But now anyone could ask him to review a concern. He wore no white coat, no faculty badge, no special title on his chest. Just Gabriel Rowan. Environmental services. The surgeons knew. That changed things at first. Too much. Residents suddenly moved aside when he entered. Attendings stopped talking casually around him. One nurse called him Dr. Rowan. He corrected her. Gabe. It took months for the hospital to become normal again. One night, Maya found him outside OR 6. Same corridor, same vent, now repaired. A sterile cart was parked nearby with its cover fully secured. You checking my work? She asked. No. You always say no, because usually I'm not. She leaned against the wall. We had a difficult case. I heard. Patient is stable. Good. Maya watched him mop around the edge of the corridor. Can I ask you something? You usually do. Do you miss surgery? Gabe stopped. For the first time, the answer took a while. Yes. Maya nodded. What part? He looked through the glass toward the operating rooms. Not the cutting. What then? The moment before. Before incision? Before the room starts. He leaned on the mop handle. Everyone checks everyone else. Timeout. No. He shook his head. Before the formal timeout. He looked at her. When the scrub nurse sees something wrong and says it. When anesthesia asks a question nobody likes. When a resident admits they don't know. Maya listened. That's surgery. He nodded. Not the knife. The following spring, St. Arden held its annual surgical symposium. Leonard Weiss returned. So did several surgeons who had trained under Gabe decades earlier. The hospital wanted to honor him. Gabe refused. They ignored him. Maya introduced a short session on safety culture. A photograph appeared on the screen. Not Gabe in scrubs. Gabe pushing a cleaning cart down a hospital hallway. He looked horrified. Maya smiled from the podium. Dr. Gabriel Rowan taught generations of surgeons that anyone in an operating room can stop a procedure if something feels wrong. She looked toward him. Last year he reminded this hospital that the same rules should apply outside the operating room. Applause began. Gabe lowered his head. Leonard leaned toward him. You deserve this, Gabe whispered. No one deserves a PowerPoint slide. Leonard laughed. After the symposium, a young surgical resident approached him near the service elevator. Dr. Rowan? Gabe, sorry. It's fine. The resident hesitated. Can I ask why you never told anyone? Gabe looked at the cleaning cart beside him. About being a surgeon? Yes. He thought for a moment, then pointed toward a small streak on the floor near the elevator doors. If I tell you that needs cleaning as Dr. Rowan, do you believe me? The resident looked confused. Yes. If I tell you as the janitor? The resident looked at the streak, then back at Gabe. I should still believe you. Gabe smiled. That's why. The elevator doors opened. He pushed the cart inside. The resident stood there thinking. A year earlier, Vivian Cross had believed expertise belonged to titles. She had believed the hierarchy protected the hospital. Surgeons handled surgery. Administrators handled metrics. Facilities handled air. Janitors handled floors. And as long as everyone stayed in the proper lane, the institution would remain efficient. But hospitals are not roads. They are living systems. Air moves through vents. Hands move between rooms. Instruments move from processing to operating tables. Numbers move from charts to boardrooms. And people at the bottom often see failures before people at the top. Gabriel Rowan had once been a famous surgeon. That made the reveal dramatic. It made surgeons whisper. It made the board nervous. It made Vivian Cross realize too late that the janitor she fired had written papers she should have recognized. But none of that was the real reason he was right. He was right because the vent had failed, because the cleaning logs were wrong, because the staffing cuts were visible, because the infection numbers did not fit. His resume did not make the evidence true. The evidence made the evidence true. That was the lesson St. Arden almost missed. On a quiet Tuesday at 2:14 in the morning, almost exactly 1 year after the first incident, Gabe stood outside operating room 6 again. A young sterile processing technician rolled a covered cart toward the doors. She stopped, checked the tag, checked the seal, then looked up at the vent. Gabe watched. She noticed him. What? Nothing. She smiled. You're checking. No. You always check. He shook his head. You checked. She looked at the cart again, then nodded. Right. The doors opened. The cart moved through. Gabe picked up his mop. At the end of the corridor, Maya Patel came out of the operating room and pulled off her cap. She saw him. Gabe. Yes? Coffee? He looked at the clock. 2:20. That's why coffee exists. He considered it. Then parked the mop bucket against the wall. They walked toward the staff lounge. No one saluted. No one stood. No one called him professor. A nurse rushed past with lab results. A resident argued quietly with radiology. A cleaner replaced an isolation sign. A technician pushed supplies toward the OR. The hospital moved around him. Messy, tired, human. Exactly the way Anna had described it. Daytime medicine was performance. Nighttime medicine was truth. Gabe had once believed being a surgeon meant standing at the center of that truth. He knew better now. Sometimes the most important person in the hallway was the one holding the scalpel. Sometimes it was the one checking the ventilator. Sometimes the one counting instruments. Sometimes the one pushing the mop. The hospital director had fired the night janitor because she thought his place in the building told her the value of his voice. Then the surgeons learned who he really was. They were stunned. But Gabriel Rowan hoped they eventually learned something harder. Who he had been was never the point. What he had noticed was,